So this is a photo of me in Vietnam. I was born in Vietnam in 1977, 2 years after the Vietnam War ended. And 2 years later, in 1979, my family and I left Vietnam as refugees, boat people. When I was a child, my mom told me on the night we escaped, the town was flooded and I was ill with a fever. When we snuck onto the boat and hid below the top deck, the water from a melting block of ice on the top deck cooled my body down, calmed me for the journey. As a child, this story resonated with me as I imagined my survival on this boat. After a week at sea, we found our way to a refugee camp in Malaysia, and a year later, we were granted asylum in the United States. My family's journey as refugees has always fascinated me. In my early 20s, I decided to visit Vietnam for the first time. Vietnam was an emotional trip for me because it was the first time I met my grandmother. I was astonished when she showed me this baby photo. I have never seen a picture of myself as a baby before. Then she showed me this one, a portrait of my family taken in the studio. My grandmother said these were the few photographs she held onto while we were lost at sea. Growing up, I seek out Vietnam by looking at photographs of war. For me, Vietnam was always a war-torn country. But seeing pictures of my family changed that. What was remarkable about this family portrait was that it was a picture I've seen before, a picture I knew well. It was the same photo I grew up with in my photo album. This is one of our first family portraits taken in our adopted country. The background in the black and white photo of us became the real-life color setting of us in San Jose, California. This experience was really remarkable for me because it tells me how vital the archival is to my work. I started collecting cultural materials such as Life magazine, personal photographs made by soldiers and civilians. I exhibit these artifacts along with my artwork. I traveled to these sites to see and knew what happened there based on the photograph I saw. For example, here I am in Laos. Thousands of bomb craters are still visible on the landscape today. And for me, the bomb craters are like scars, and scars are reminders of past wounds. Art has the power to reveal and to heal. And to help further this idea, I developed a photographic printing process called chlorophyll prints. I used pictures I found in my research to print onto leaves. I thought, what if the plants could witness these horrific events? What would they remember? What would they say? We learn in school that all matters are composed of atoms of various elements. Atoms rearrange themselves according to the law of nature. All those atoms that compose us carry memories that reach back to the beginning of time. They were involved in many conflicts before the Vietnam War. This project deals with an idea I call elemental transmigration, the decompositions of matters into other forms. The war became part of the landscape, and nature remembered the traumas in the elements that compose the landscape. Many of you know the photo Buddhist Monk Burns by the war photographer Malcolm Brown. As a child, I came across Malcolm Brown's photograph in the Time Life 25-volume set Vietnam Experience. I was taken by this image of the monk sitting in a peaceful lotus position with flames coming from his body. I imagined the smell of smoke coming from his robe and flesh, and in an instant, the smoke and ashes become part of the onlooker. And sometimes I stumble upon casualties of war, such as this June 27, 1969 issue of Life magazine called 1 Week's Dead. It was about the faces of the American dead in Vietnam 1 week's toll. Life magazine published the portraits of 242 U.S. soldiers who were killed during an ordinary week of May 28 to June 3, 1969. By looking at these photos, we are reminded that a casualty in a war is not just a number. These faces are fathers, brothers, and sons, and they become part of our collective memories. To photograph is to remember. A photograph is a picture of the past. A photograph is only able to record a slice of time. The documentary filmmaker Ken Burns said photographs are the DNA of our memories. And I just love that idea that photographs help us remember. What happened to soldiers who die in war? How do their memories become part of the landscape? A photo of this one by war photographer Larry Barrows had a big impact on me. I thought about memories as bodily fluid leaving a trail in the landscape. So I printed portraits of the 1 week's dead onto leaves of grass. As a kid, while sitting on grass, I always noticed how grass blade embossed himself onto my leg. That contact is an exchange of memory. This week marked the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, effectively ending the Vietnam War. This is a daguerreotype of Walt Whitman, and the daguerreotype invented in 1839 in France was the first photographic process that became commercially viable. It produced a photographic image on a silver plate. In specimen days, Walt Whitman wrote, "The real war would never get in the books," which he meant essentially the ways and experience of soldiers were never recorded in the history book. As the United States military embarks on other foreign wars, we see makeshift memorials to our fallen soldier. In November of 2006, residents of Lafayette and neighboring communities set up crosses on a private hillside across from the BARC station. They call this the Lafayette Hillside Memorial. These symbols were to memorialize American soldiers who died in Iraq. A sign was added to update the numbers of soldiers who had sacrificed their lives. It seems to them that the country was blind to the human cost of war. I have been photographing this hillside for the past decade. I made daguerreotypes of this Lafayette Hillside Memorial in 2011. In this project, I recognize that I am a witness to history. The daguerreotype is in reverse because it's a mirror image. The long exposure, about a minute, blur out the flag. And for every U.S. soldier's death, there were countless more Iraqi and Afghan deaths. If you flip the writings in your mind, the sign reads Corporal Sean Levin. The viewer must struggle to read the writing, slowing us down when viewing pictures of war. Each of these crosses is a portrait to our fallen soldier. And like a gravestone, the family members take care of these crosses. And like all of us, while I hold sacred my freedom as an American, I'm also troubled by its cost of human lives. This daguerreotype depicts the first time I photographed James Coon's cross. While photographing this cross, I was taken by the faded photographs and the angel and the soldier beret that personified the shapes of the cross. The following year, I was pleased to see the faded photographs replaced. The photographs faded again a year later, and the beret slowly sank into the cross. As the photographs fade and replaced by the family members, we learn more about James Coon, and we participate in the act of remembrance. I gave a talk at the Lafayette Library a few years ago. I returned that summer and found this cross, A Protest Against Forgetting. I titled my talk, A Protest Against Forgetting. By photographing this landscape and conversing with the community around it, I'm also becoming part of it. These days, the Vietnam War is always on my mind, even when I head to the national park to make daguerreotypes. As a child, Yosemite only existed in my imagination as I saw pictures of it in photo books like those by Ansel Adams. And one day, by browsing through a photographic trade show, I found a tintype of 3 Chinese men in the studio backdrop photograph. This image makes me wonder how the Asian body fits into the American landscape. During the California gold rush, Chinese labor laid the railroad tracks and dug the mines to the gold field. but many of those depictions are removed from the mainstream media. After several years of practicing the daguerreotype, I have a new way of visualizing an old photographic subject. Making daguerreotypes of the national parks allows me to insert my viewers into the landscape as a way of citizenship, as a way to say you belong here. This is our artist, Brandon Ng. I waited several hours for the sun to illuminate the quote on top of the arch at the north entrance of Yellowstone. The top of the arch is inscribed with a quote, "For the benefit and enjoyment of the people." The daguerreotype does not represent reality the way we see it. The image is high resolution. The silver crystal produces prismatic colors that shifts between blues and pink. And today, daguerreotypes are obsolete, so they are, in a way, an art form. And while photographing the parks, I base my composition on my memories of the parks, like those by the 19th century photographers Carlton Walker and Edward Muybridge. Because each daguerreotype is unique and unreproducible, you're never able to record the same scene twice. One of my favorite rock formation in Yosemite Valley is Three Brothers. It is reflected in the waters of the Merced River during the late summer season. In 1851, the Mariposa Battalion named this formation Three Brothers after the capture of three sons by Chief Tenaya. The Mariposa was formed in 1851 to defeat Native tribes during the California genocide. 100 years later, in 1955, the Vietnam War started. Here's a portrait of my mother carrying my brother and me. I call it Two Brothers and a Mom. The war-torn consequences of refugees fleeing are an American story imbued in our landscape far and near. Thank you.